Welcome, everybody. Today we have with us Chintamani Bird, and let me tell you a little bit about her. She's an accomplished interior and biophilic designer known for her expertise, a passionate advocate for biophilic design, sustainability, and mental health. She actively conducts workshops and lectures, inspiring future designers to embed nature into their work for a healthier, more harmonious environment. Thank you for spending time with us today, Chintamani.
Oh, thanks, Maureen. It's really appreciate having me. And good morning. Well, good morning to me.
Good morning. And yes, we were just talking. Thank you so much for getting up at the crack of dawn to be with us from Australia. What part of Australia do you live in?
So I live in the Blue Mountains in New South Wales, which is just off near Sydney. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours from Sydney. So it's a
Oh,
beautiful place. I can hear the cockatoos squawking away and screeching away in the background. So you'll probably hear
I
nature in the background.
I think I just heard something. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Wonderful. Welcome. And another biophilic designer, which I love to chat with because I have such a love for the practice of biophilic design. Maybe just share a little bit how you kind of went to uh, that practice of biophilic design, even though you've been a designer for a while, correct?
Yes, so I've always been fascinated by nature from a little girl going sailing with my father. I've always been enthralled and in complete awe of my surroundings. But also, life's been hard as well. So when I came and studied design, I've always been a passionate advocate for to see people, to see who they are, and their authenticity, and for come from the heart, because that's who I am. So biophilic design is the creative part, so design, which I'm very creative, and also psychologically and the neuroscience of how people feel and how the brain works. And when being an advocate and a passionate and inquisitive person, I always wanted to understand how the brain works and how someone can heal. So when you look at biophilic design, it's about healing, and it's about people want to help with by being frontline, like a psychologist or an ambulance or a nurse. For me, being creative is very intrinsic part of who I am, but also being able to make that very heart centered. And so when you're looking at biophilic design, you can support people healing from cancer. You can help people with mental health, schizophrenia. There is the first place that I found out was a psychiatric hospital in Norway, which was created with biophilic design. And within 12 months, with all of these different, because there's 72 attributes, so it's a little bit crazy. 50% reduction in physical restraints, 20% reduction in medication.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a significant part, and so I can really nerd out on the science because I absolutely love the science, and so I'm just going to go, okay, don't bore people with science. And so I was like enthralled with the actual whole process. So the deeper I dived, the more passionate I became. And I really want to support people with depression, PTSD, complex PTSD, and understanding what that is about. So, yes, it's a massive piece of science.
Yes. And I think the science just confirms what we intuitively knew that, buildings aren't just shelter. They really can be either contributing to our welfare or detracting from it. They can create more stress or they can create more calm. And that's why I love the practice of biophilic design. And as a feng shui practitioner, when I discovered it, I just was like, yes, because it had the actual scientific evidence that feng shui has really never had. So it's a wonderful complement to my work. And being an interior designer, do you primarily work with people in their homes?
So I do commercial and residential. So I've spoken about acoustics, currently doing a bit of research on lighting and circadian rhythms. And that will be, I've done some, I've got a column with the Journal of Biophilic Design with Dr. Vanessa Champion, and she's just a beautiful person. I just love
Yes,
her. She's
we
gorgeous.
have her as a shared friend, and I have my column as well in the journal. So yeah, it's a wonderful venue for people to learn about the practice from all different angles.
So one of the things I've just learned about the circadian rhythms, that people with schizophrenia actually have a different biochemical, genetic pre-makeup of a circadian rhythm. So when you're designing for people with mental health, you have to act, and you want them to rest, you want to have their lower their blood pressure and the like, you have to actually understand the science and the neuroscience of that. Otherwise, you're not understanding, because we think, oh, well, we're diurnal, it's night and day. But apparently, I was just, as I said, with the research, there's more than 7 types of circadian rhythms
Oh,
for
wow.
humans, for humans.
Wow.
And I was like mind blown.
Well, I mean, just as someone who likes to go to sleep a little later and sleep in the morning versus somebody who like goes to bed early and wakes up early, are those like two different ones of the
Yes,
seven?
yeah. I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah. So the
the,
early bird and the
the
late
early bird and
sleeper.
the night owl, definitely. But this comes back to evolution as well. So if you imagine that when we're sort of before industrial revolution and we were evolving, that if we're all asleep at the same time, we're actually a bit more susceptible for
Right.
attack. So the night owl would stay up because that's the normal. Whereas I like to be in bed early. I like to eat early. I like to bed early.
For
And
you,
yeah,
since you had to get up at 5:30 this morning for the interview.
yeah, my body's just sort of waking up. And yeah, so there are some people who wake up at 4 a.m. and that's just their cycle. And as long as they are happy with that cycle, and they're still getting that, because sorry, I'm nerding out. The cycles are not strictly 24 hours. It's a little bit above, it's 24 hours and 9 minutes, or a little bit less, like 23 hours and I think it was 30 minutes. So it's not strict. So so the construct of time sometimes is made.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we could probably end on that, but it is fascinating uh, research coming out all the time that really help us understand how we interact with each other, with the environment, with nature. So switching gears a little bit, I always like to ask my clients how their childhood experience was nature connected or not. You talked a little bit about it a few minutes ago. I would just love for you to share a little bit more.
I always found, ever since I was little, I've had this very curious and adventurous spirit, and one of the things for me is that I just love seeing the detail, and I've always found complete wonder and awe in nature, just going camping. And I do remember there was a time where I just found solace. I found a place that I belonged, because life, as I previously and briefly mentioned, it's difficult, sort of, especially in today's age, but in the 70s when I grew up, it was extremely hard for me, very hard and challenging childhood. There were great, there was light and dark. So when you look at nature, it was where I found my comfort, where I found my solace, and where I found beauty and awe of the miraculous and bountiful parts of where you can just see. And it was the only place I saw beauty,
Can, can
and
can you share maybe a particular place in nature? that you would gravitate toward, and just describe it a little for us and how it was.
So it was sort of like, so when we used to go away on holidays, and I was 13, 12, 13, around that age. And it's a place where there are a lot of lakes and there are a lot of horses, and obviously there were snakes. And I could actually go for a swim and I could feel this sense of my body would just relax and just feel and not be so hypervigilant, you know. And so I just felt this sense of calm. There were trees, obviously, and there were pathways, and we would go spearfishing and go and we would catch little brim, which are little tiny fish here, and we would actually get out and get a little tiny fire and cook up the fish as soon as we got out of the water. And sometimes I would just stare up at the sky and it would be a way for me to commune with nature, you know. Or I would talk, I would just ponder on life, because it was sort of a challenge to understand the way the world worked. And with nature, it was quite simple, you know. And so at this particular place, I found that, I don't know, it was in my heart. It was just something that helped me relax. It helped me feel stronger. And it was also an escape from reality.
Yeah, it's interesting that someone else that I interviewed for my book, who also had a very traumatic childhood, talked about going in a lake, and that was where she found solace. So, yeah, the theme of water, it just natural water and this, the quietness of a lake.
Yeah, it was. And there was a lot of families around that we all sort of, it was a bit of a sort of friends of friends and all that sort of big sort of thing. But the thing for me was, I'd love to look up at the sky, and it was like I was talking to God. It was like I was talking to something greater than myself.
Yeah, that is what nature can do for us. Give us a sense of something greater, which does add peace and awe and wonder and mystery. So, okay, so do you have any story in particular that you can share about an experience in nature?
So living in the Blue Mountains and living in Australia, I've always loved bushwalking. In America, you call it hiking. And so one of the things that I do remember, and it was within the last decade. Sounds terrible when you start talking decades. Anyway, I remember walking along and I loved looking at details, being a designer and just understanding. And just, I think for me, the whole purpose of life is not to get to the end, it's the journey. And I do remember once when I were walking along in this trail in the Blue Mountains, and I saw this amazing dragonfly. And it's sort of like, it was black, but the detail had red detail that was very, very fine. And it was stuck under a little tiny ledge next to the footpath. And I just sat there and I thought, how amazing. I just stood there in awe. And I find when you stop and look at the amazing details of animals and how this world is created, I think since the Industrial Revolution, we think, no matter. And the whole point that we are part of nature. We are, we were born from nature. We're not above nature. We depend on nature. So if the human race disappeared, nature would still be here and replenished. But it
Right.
seems like the human race is actually hell bent on actually suppressing nature and not understanding how we are actually fundamentally destroying what sustains us.
Okay, so you've had transitions in your life, many of
Yes,
them.
so many.
Okay. Were any of those changes in your thinking precipitated by an experience in nature or a dream of nature?
And there's times where I've done some soul searching in that in that arena of life where you just want to dance, you want to play, and you want to let go of those constructs of what society is or isn't meant to be.
Yeah, it's just like letting yourself be playful again, just relaxing the norms and just be curious and playful.
I think one of the things for me is that there are times where I'm an extrovert and I love the freedom that that creates. The play, like in the ocean, like the ocean is my home. Although I live in the bush, the ocean and the stars is my home. And that is what, because I've always, when I did scuba diving, it's just like you go down and there's this, this otherworldly events in there. And you would feed the gropers and you would again look at the marvel of the sea turtles. And I do remember scuba diving through a cave and then coming out as a cave and seeing the bull shark and just, this world provides such marvel and wonder. And the journey of actually seeing how it makes my heart and everyone's heart feel. I think for me, scuba diving was something that I loved and feared because it was joy and dangerous and you just looked at everything in a different perspective, because of my love for and wonder for the odd and the curious. And I think your brain goes blank and your emotions become alive because you're just like in this wonder without that cerebral cortex going A plus B equals AB and doing that 1 + 1 = 2. Just incredible awe. And your brain stops working and you just start becoming one with your surroundings. And I love that. I just love how the water, and the salt and the sea and the freshness that it feels upon the skin, and how you can be transported into this different sense of peace. And I still find that to this day where the ocean is my home.
It's one environment that we have that is like totally separate, almost like a different dimension, right?
Yeah.
It's just so different from our normal everyday life. I've never scuba dived, but I've snorkeled. So I've got a little taste of what you're talking about. And even snorkeling, you dive under and stuff. It's like you're having your own private experience because, with your peripheral vision it's kind of cut off, right? So you're just looking in front of you. Your ears are hearing muffled. noises. There's no real talking. It's just kind of floating and looking and just taking it all in.
Yeah, it is. And, besides having your regulator in your mouth and your fins are propelling you, I think that one of the biggest things I had experienced was the awe and the danger, which is we went into this, we penetrated a cave, completely dark. And this is in my 20s. And there was a underwater cavern that we sort of, with the regulator, put some air into the actual cavern. And we sort of got up and we sort of talked and the like. And we came out and I was having an awful problem with my mask and my hood because I had a hood on because my mask kept on getting flooded with water. And took that off, fixed that, put that back on, and there's a bull shark. And it just glides along. And you can see the eye watch because I was just on the ground in front of this cavern, in front of this cave on the other side, and everyone had left because I was fiddling with the things, except for my dive buddy. I saw the shark. I screamed. It was hilarious. That I screamed. I can think of it now. Like it was hilarious. But the thing that I also felt was amazing was how it just glided away. Just, and I was like, okay. And so underwater diving, and yeah, it's just an incredible experience.
It's that experience with the bull shark when you locked eyes. Like, what was that like?
It was fear and all. Like it was like so basically I turned, I screamed. My heart was my heart was pounding. So obviously, because my heart was pounding because I was taking off my mask, taking out my regulator. I was having a whole thing at 25 meters down underwater. So there was thing and there was a, and so he's probably attracted to the vibrations of my heart in the first place because I was struggling with getting air because I'm naturally a nose breather. So take your mask off and you want to breathe through your nose. So it was a whole thing going on to me. And then finally, I'm all ready. And he's probably attracted to the fear that I was feeling at the time. And and that's what happened. And then I was basically just watching as he glided in. So I was the visitor, not him. And isn't it funny to talk as a shark as a him? I don't know if it was him or a her. And yeah, I found it incredible because, and it was so it was about a meter away. So that's 3 feet away.
Wow.
So we're not talking about,
Wow.
like, oh, it's over in the distance. We're talking 3 feet or a
Wow.
meter away, meter away.
Wow.
Yes. It was close.
So it was fight or flight like that. Well, you were already in fight or flight before you saw him or her. And then it was like supercharged. Wow. But after this experience, was that an amazing experience for you?
It was an amazing experience because I developed respect. I developed this sense that there is so much more than the the constructs of what we perceive is going on. That shark is just looking, and there were a lot of sharks around. Apparently, there were great whites around, which I didn't comprehend the magnitude of that at the time. So, yeah, it was that experience really was the first time that I experienced nature that didn't require anything. And always in my mind's eye, there's the two images of when I locked eyes with the shark as it glided past me. All right. So it wasn't head on, it was hello. It was checking me out. And as it glided away, and it was and the tail, and as it disappeared into the deep. And
Wow. That's not an encounter that many of us can say we've had.
that
You
is
know, that
true.
sounds like a really sacred experience.
Yeah, because we're taught to fear sharks, but sharks are amazing. They actually clean up the ocean of dead fish, dead whales. They're wonderful, amazing things, creatures. And so, yeah, it's always been in my memory. Have to dig it out a little bit because sometimes it's sort of like there are so many things that you forget. But that, that was incredible. And then because we lost our group, we went along the wrong channel and all sorts of things. But it was amazing going through that cave, walking into that cave, and then going underneath and seeing that shark because it wasn't orchestrated.
No.
It wasn't me searching, oh, want to commune with this shark. But yeah, it did impact my life.
You know, I I think about the symbolism and metaphor of these experiences and how they resonate with our lives, especially when we have them. Going into a dark cave is, really about, self-reflection and just like a monk, right? Going into a cave to separate from society. So there's a bit of that spiritual retreat feeling, and then having an experience of a being that, you like a brush with death, right? They say. I mean,
Mm.
to me, it feels like if I had that kind of experience, I would say that was a formidable experience in my life. That was an initiation to another phase.
Hmm. I haven't thought of that. There were so many other things that have happened, and I think nature is always an initiation, isn't it?
But there are some experiences that stand out,
Mm.
right? Stand out more than others. I mean, that is
Mm.
quite a story to be able to
Yeah,
share.
yeah. It was. I think one of the things I found is that you know when you would feed the gropers, or you would go cave diving, or on shipwrecks, or whatever. Like I think that one is where you just think there was no control. I had no control in that situation because I was 25 meters down in an environment that I'm not naturally accustomed to. And then you had the apex predator that I had that just went, "Who are you? I want to check this out."
And was
Yeah.
curious, not ravenous.
No, not for me. Thank goodness. But yeah, I think it was an incredible event because you saw the majesty, you saw you could understand the respect that needed to be present, and the insignificance of who I am. When you see that he meant no harm. It was all like, obviously the vibration of my fear and my heart pounding out of my chest because I was trying to actually work my hood and my mask and my regulator and breathing. Yeah, and to be 3 feet or 1 meter away, it was like I could have touched him. It was an amazing sort of experience. Amazing experience. Something that I will never probably ever experience again.
Well, as we come to a close, I just want to thank you so much for coming on my podcast today. It's been just such a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate sharing, yeah, different parts of my life and connecting with yourself and your audience.
Yes, yes. So please, if you listen to this and you resonated with something, you were inspired, or something sparked within you, please write in the comments. We will reply to you. And please share and, of course, subscribe to this channel. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a wonderful day. Stay on.